Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Linda Bjork, best-selling author, podcast host of Linda's Corner, and founder of the not-for-profit Hope for Healing. Hi, everyone. I am Lori Ann. I am that gal from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
This podcast, we welcome Linda Bjork, and she is a best-selling author, podcast host of Linda's Corner, and founder of the not-for-profit Hope for Healing. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Larianne and Roy, I love your podcast. I recently listened to the episode with Ari Gronich. I loved it so much. I went back and listened to it a second time. So thank you for producing a great show.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Really, really kind words. We really do appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So, Linda, do you mind telling us about your personal transformation story?
I would love to. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So perhaps you're familiar with the Japanese art form called kintsugi, where they take broken pottery and then they repair it using this mixture of gold dust and lacquer. And it creates something that is beautiful and unique. And it's actually stronger than it was before it was broken. It undergoes a transformation from broken to beautiful. And I like to think of my story as a transformation from broken to beautiful. Now, there's different kinds of broken. For example, say you're crossing the street, you accidentally drop your cell phone and the screen cracks and you think, oh man, I broke my phone. But you might just pick it up, dust it off, and keep on using it because it still works. So for me, my basic brokenness was lifelong feelings that I'm not good enough, I don't matter. In fact, I'm invisible. I felt broken, and yet I could still live my life. Now, there's another kind of broken. Say you're crossing the street, accidentally drop your cell phone, and then a truck runs it over. It's like now we have a different problem. It's not just broken, it is crushed, and it no longer functions very well. So for me, my being crushed was struggling with debilitating depression and social anxiety. It was as if my comfort zone absolutely collapsed, and I did not feel safe, not anywhere and not with anyone. And I also couldn't feel happy regardless of the circumstances around me. And it was really frustrating. So a lot of people wonder, well, what crushed you? What was that truck that ran you over? Well, we all have trials and struggles in our lives, and I'm no exception. I've dealt with poverty and illness and tragedy. Once I had my mouth wired shut for 6 weeks so that my broken jaw could heal properly. And during that time, I couldn't speak, I couldn't eat. The only sustenance I could get was what I could suck through a straw. I have also survived a catastrophic engine failure in a small 2-person airplane. As we were flying along, there was an explosion. Smoke started pouring out of the cowling. Oil was oozing at my feet like blood. The plane was shaking so violently, I thought pieces were going to fall off and we were just going to plummet straight to the ground. And it was obvious we weren't going to make it to a runway. So we had to scan the ground to try to find a place for an emergency landing that wouldn't kill us or hopefully not destroy people and property on the ground. And that experience was terrifying. I have also arrived at the scene of a motorcycle accident in time to see my son's broken body lying in the middle of an intersection, surrounded by flashing lights and emergency personnel. And that is an image I'll never forget. I've also, once I took my teenage daughter in for some outpatient surgery, a simple procedure, cutting and cauterizing, to take care of some female issues she was having. The procedure was done. The doctor said, okay, take her home, let her get some rest. A little bleeding is normal, but watch for blood clots and infection. So I took her home, put her to bed. And then every half hour or so, I tiptoe into her room and peek in to see how she was doing. And she was sleeping peacefully. Well, several hours passed, and then I got a text. It's from my daughter. She's in her room. I'm in the kitchen, and it says, hey, Mom, will you come to my room? I need to show you something. And so I went into her room. I said, hey, you're awake. How are you doing? And she didn't answer me with words. Instead, she threw off her covers, and she was soaked in blood from her chest all the way down to her feet. There are not words adequate to describe the panic and the terror that I felt. coupled with horrible guilt because I had been checking on her the whole time and I thought she was okay. And in reality, she was bleeding to death right under my nose. I also have received a phone call in the middle of the night that my 9-month-old grandson had had a seizure and was not expected to make it through the night. He was life-flighted to Primary Children's Hospital where they did emergency surgery to try to relieve the pressure on his brain, followed by another very delicate brain surgery where they went from the top of his skull all the way to the base of his skull as they tried to preserve his life and correct the problem. And I'm so grateful that they were able to preserve his life. But unfortunately, through this ordeal, he did sustain brain damage. I also have another beautiful grandchild who was diagnosed with cancer at age 5 months. So we all have challenges and trials and struggles in our lives, and we do the very best we can to be able to handle them and to move forward. But sometimes we're hit with something so big or so unexpected, or maybe multiple things in a row, where we become overwhelmed and we don't handle it very well. And when we're in that place, if we're not careful, we can slip into depression. And that is what happened with me. It was as if I had fallen into a deep, dark hole. And it was so deep that it felt like sunlight and happiness and hope could not reach me. And there were no windows and no doors in this dark place. And I did not see any way out. I thought, well, this is my new reality. This is as good as it gets. And from here on out, the best that I can ever hope for is to be able to endure in misery for the rest of my life. And I stayed in that place for about 5 years, but almost no one knew because I was very good at masking. Now, about this time, my sister, who was training to become a life coach, she was planning this women's retreat and she'd rented this condo in the mountains and she was going to invite a group of women and teach them about how to be happy and live fulfilled and all this cute stuff. And she had no idea what I was going through, but she invited me to come. And when she did, it made me sick. I thought, there's no way. There is no way I can handle being with other people, strangers no less, day and night for 3 days. And besides, there's no point because nothing works. I'm stuck. There is nothing that can help me. And so I did not want to go. But somehow that idea would not leave my mind. And so I gathered my courage together and I went. And I'm so glad that I did because that decision changed my life. It is as if my sister lowered a ladder down into my deep, dark hole, and she showed me a way to climb out. And it was very much a ladder. It was not an elevator. It was not instant at the press of a button. It was hard. It took time and it took effort, but it worked. I have learned from my experiences that healing is not like flipping on a light switch where it's instant. It's more like a sunrise where it's gradual and the changes from moment to moment might be imperceptible, but they do come and it is beautiful. I've also learned from my experiences that those feelings that I had of being broken and of being crushed are actually quite common, even among people who might look like they have it all together. And I've written a book about my experiences called Crushed, A Journey Through Depression. And I have received so many letters from readers who said, wow, it felt like you were in my head. It felt like I was reading my own story. And it gave them, they felt seen. They felt understood. And it gave them hope that they could heal too. And it's interesting that this is not just from people struggling with depression and anxiety, but all kinds of people dealing with all kinds of issues. Because even though our life experiences are very different, the feelings, the emotions that we have are actually very similar and relatable. And that is what Crushed is about. I have made myself vulnerable and open so that I can help other people because I want to be a person who offers a ladder to anyone who is trapped in a dark place.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I could have survived all that stuff you went through. Okay, Lorianne, I'm going to throw this out there for you. I've always said women are a lot stronger than men when it comes to this kind of stuff. Being able to get past all that stuff.
Well, remember, I didn't handle things very well at first. But here's what I can say. The good news is, even if we don't handle things awesome at first, we get a second chance to rebound. And that's what resiliency is all about, is being able to come back on the rebound. Isn't it wonderful that we get more than one chance? Because often we handle things beautifully, but sometimes not so much. And there's still a way to be able to heal and to recover and to move forward. And I think that's very important. Otherwise, we feel like, oh, I screwed up and game over. And that's not true at all.
Yeah, you were able to, you were able to get past it, where a lot of people might not. They might have got stuck right there and never been able to move forward for years.
It is very true. It is possible to get stuck in that dark place and to stay there forever. And I have to say, when I was in it, I thought that's what it was going to be. My message, if I can put it in just a nutshell for anyone who has felt that way, is feeling that way. One, you're not alone. And two, there is hope for healing. And that is so important, because when I was in that dark place, I did not feel any hope. I thought, this is it. This is the new status quo. And I believe that every journey to healing begins with hope. And hope is an acrostic. The H stands for having a hunger for healing, for happiness. I have learned that if we're satisfied with the status quo and the way that things are, just stays the same. It begins with a desire, but a little bit of a desire is not enough to make a change. It has to be a hunger. That desire has to reach a tipping point. And that tipping point is when we want to change more than we want to stay the same. And you can tell when you've reached that tipping point because you're willing to do something about it. The O stands for being open. When I was struggling with depression and anxiety in that dark place, I was closed tight, 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 like a little armadillo rolled up in its shell. And the reason they do that is to protect themselves. And that's what I was doing. I was absolutely in survival mode, and I was just trying to protect myself. But you can't heal that way until you begin to open up. And for me, the first step was admitting to another person, to my sister, I'm not in a good place. So I didn't go from tight, tight, tight to arms open wide. It just was that slight little crack of saying, I'm not in a good place, and allowing myself to be that little bit of vulnerable. And that began to allow that healing in. Now, openness, besides just admitting, hey, there's something I need some help with, is allowing someone to help you and to be open to having new ideas, open to trying new things. I've learned that our mind is a little like a parachute. It works better when it's open. The P stands for positive expectancy. And positive expectancy is when we are expecting a positive outcome. And that is so important for the success of any type of treatment for mental or emotional issues. We're not going to put the effort in if we don't think it's going to do any good. And like I said, I didn't think that my sister's retreat would do me any good because I was stuck. But sometime we had a little conversation before I actually went, and it was a phone call, and I talked to her, and that was when I admitted, I said, I'm scared. I want to go, but I'm scared. I'm not in a good place. And her response was, I had no idea. You look like you had everything all together, but I understand, because I felt that way before too. People thought I had everything all together when actually I was a mess inside. But now I'm genuinely happy, and it's wonderful. And that little conversation, a couple things happened. One, I didn't feel judged by her. I felt like, wait, you understand? You, my perfect sister, you had struggles too. And the second thing is she gave me some hope that something worked for her. And then I thought, maybe, just maybe, she might have something that could help me too. So once again, it's not from zero hope to all the hope in the world. It's just if you can let that sliver of hope So positive expectancy. The good news is healing really is possible, and that is amazing. And we have proof through MRI scans that if we change our words, our thoughts, and our behavior, it can change significantly the chemistry and function of our brains and also the chemistry in our body. So it's physiological and awesome. The E stands for empowerment. If we're struggling with low self-esteem, with low confidence, with anxiety, with victim mentality, with any of these things, we're not feeling safe. We're feeling powerless. And so we have to find a way to get our power back. And when I talk about power, sometimes power is misunderstood. I'm not talking about power over another person. I'm talking about power over me. This is the power that I know that I can handle my problems. This is the power that brings confidence and not arrogance. This is the kind of power that I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I know that I'm good enough. So how do we obtain this power? And it comes through small and simple things. It's a combination of learning and doing. If we learn something and then don't apply it, it is not self-help, it's shelf-help. Doesn't do us any good. We do have to learn. That's the first step. But it's through learning and doing that makes the changes. So through small, simple action steps, we can change literally, and it's so awesome, the chemistry in our brains and in our bodies to help us be able to be happy. And this is the reason why I started the nonprofit Hope for Healing, to be able to share those tools to anyone. Again, I want to offer a ladder to anyone who feels trapped in a dark place, because there are things that we can do. We have more power than we realize.
Interesting you mentioned words, because we have had a couple of guests on the past that really opened us up to the fact of your words really are important to what
Isn't
you
that
do.
interesting? It seems like such a small and simple thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. You remember that, Lorianne?
and I'm telling you, every time I write anything, I go back and change to either however, or I just take it out and put and. I know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say quickly though, in regards to women being stronger than men, I do believe that men now opening up more, because there is a lot more ability to do that for men. They're getting through things, so they're not as don't put a shell in front of them and not talk about, but there's a lot more opening. So I think we're learning more about what men have gone through that we didn't know before, and we hear women are a little bit more open about it. Now men opening up, we go, hey, wow, you know, he's like me. which you wouldn't think, right?
Right. So there have been some changes. And I'm a podcast host like yourself, and I've had many guests as we talk about this. And women tend to be, you know, they show their emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show things. And men have emotions. Oh my goodness, they're human too. But because many of them have been told, you don't do this and you don't have that and you're not allowed to this, they stuff, they hide, and they run away. And that creates its own whole set of problems. So we need to allow women and men to both be human. We have to be able to process the issues that we're faced with, and then we're able to work through them. It makes such a difference. If you have the example of a fresh body of water and a salt body of water, say the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea, the difference is that the Sea of Galilee has an inlet and an outlet. And the Dead Sea has an inlet and nothing gets out. And it kills everything. So for us to be able to be healthy and vibrant and living, we have to be able to allow things to flow through us. And that involves and includes being able to find a healthy way to process those emotions.
Yeah. So how long was from the time you, I guess, were at your lowest low till you got with your sister, started working through everything? How long were you in that dark period?
Excellent question. So you're talking about from dark before I started pulling out, or from
Right.
starting to pull out to feeling fabulous?
No, when you started the journey to heal.
Okay, that's an excellent question. And I think it's very realistic to figure out, well, how long does it take for things to happen? So if you remember the analogy of the sunrise, where things from moment to moment are gradual, and imperceptible. And sometimes you don't even recognize that there's a change. And then you look back and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm happy today. I'm feeling good. So I would say that within 30 days, you can see significant measurable changes. However, that's not enough time to say that you are completely healed. That is a process that is going to take a while.
Yeah. But you still have a measurement.
Yes, you can. If you choose to do things like writing something down, then you can look back and see the difference. But sometimes just from moment to moment when we're living, we don't notice things. So that can be kind of interesting. Can I share a couple of the tools that I was able to use?
Please.
Okay, so one of the things that I was asked to learn and do and change was gratitude, and to write a gratitude journal. Now, I know when you talk about gratitude journals, it sounds like, just isn't that cute for those little Pollyanna kind of people who like to do that sort of thing? But this is not like a real solution for people with real problems. But the research shows that it is. And it's amazing what gratitude does for our bodies and for our minds. Research shows that gratitude improves the neuroplasticity of the brain, which is so necessary for any kind of healing, any kind of growth, any kind of improvement. They've used fMRI scanners and also shown that gratitude helps to stimulate the prefrontal cortex area of the brain, which is where our rational, conscious thought takes place. And it also helps right in the middle where you have now I forgot the word, part of the prefrontal cortex area, the part that connects between that part and the emotional part, because not all of our brain connects with that emotion. So to be able to become more in control of our emotions, gratitude helps put us there. And it also helps to, one of my favorite studies that was done was they took a group of people who were struggling with severe depression, and they asked them to write 3 things that they were grateful for every day. And then after 15 days, they came back and checked to see how they were doing. And 94% of the participants had noticed an improvement. They had gone from either severely depressed up to moderately or mildly depressed. So it wasn't that all of their problems were solved with that flip of a light switch, but it greatly improved their quality of life and put them on a good path. And that was only 15 days. So part of a suggestion that I would give for your listeners is I invite you to write a gratitude journal. And again, this is not the flipping on a switch. If I sit down once and say, man, I am grateful for, then all of a sudden I'm all better. But what it does is if you get in that habit of writing something every day, and you can even write things in the morning to help you get a boost of happiness for the day, or in the evening, or both, then it makes changes in our bodies and helps us to be able to become more happy. Another thing that I was able to do, or was asked to do, was music. Listening to music is so powerful to help affect the way that we feel. And again, in research studies, they found that music stimulates more different parts of the brain than any other thing that we can do. And it does some amazing things. Our brain waves actually tend to synchronize somewhat to the rhythm of the music. And we can use that in a couple different ways. If we're feeling anxious or uptight or frustrated, if we listen to calming music, it can actually help our brain be able to calm down and to be able to handle the situation. If we're struggling with apathy and we just don't want to get up and we don't want to do anything, listening to that positive, upbeat music can literally help jumpstart our brain so that we can wake up and be able to accomplish things. I mean, there's a reason why people have jogging playlists, because it makes such a difference. Then if you really want to amp up the power of the music, rather than just listening, you sing along. And singing has been shown by many research studies to do so many incredible things. It actually reduces muscle tension. It helps to reduce the level of cortisol, the stress hormone in your body. It helps to elevate endorphins to help us be able to feel better. It does so many amazing things. Another study that I loved that was done about singing was they took a group of people who were struggling with depression and anxiety. They divided into 2 groups, had one be the control group and said, just keep doing what you're doing. The other group, they said, Keep everything the same except for one thing. We want you to sing a song every day. And so they did that. 30 days later, they came back and checked. The control group was, as you might expect, the same place they were before. But the study group, the ones that had added singing to their daily routine, had significantly lower levels of depression and anxiety. And there are so many reasons why this is the case, and we don't even understand all of them. One of them, scientists recently discovered, is that we have a tiny little organ in the inner ear called the sacculus, and it is stimulated when we sing, not so much when we listen to music or when we talk, but when we sing. And when that little sacculus is stimulated, it gives a little boost of pleasure to the brain and helps us to be able to feel good. So we have these different tools that we can use, and by even combining them, it helps make things even better. So when I was struggling, one of my assignments was get up and sing a song every day. And it should be something where the words have meaning to you and something that makes you feel good. And then in the evening, write down things that you're grateful for. Another thing I had to do was to write some successes for the day. When I was down and frustrated and feeling, depressed, I thought, I am a loser. I can't do anything. I'm a failure, on and on and on and on. And it's time to start claiming our successes. And instead of saying, what's wrong with me? Because your brain is such a wonderful, loyal servant, it will say, oh, what's wrong with you? Oh, I'll find something. Let's see, today you screwed up here, 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 and here. But if you, at the end of the day, you say, what did I do right today? And your brain will say, what did I do right today? Oh, well, here, 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 and here. So there is good and there is bad, but where we focus makes such a huge, huge difference. Another thing that I had to work on was my self-talk. My self-talk was not very good. It was all things of I am a, and it was negative, not good things. So that is bad for lots and lots of reasons. And one of them is that there's a phenomenon called the mere exposure effect. And the mere exposure effect is that when we hear something over and over again, we tend to believe it, whether or not it's true. And researchers are actually kind of baffled by it because we think we're so logical and reasonable and rational. And yet when we hear something over and over again, true or not, we believe it. It's crazy. And once we believe something, then we reflexively fight to defend it. So if I'm telling myself all day, oh, you can't do anything right, you're such a loser, you da, 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 then I believe it because I heard it all the time and I defend it. So if somebody says, oh man, you did a great job today, my brain says, no, actually, I'm a loser. Did you forget I'm actually a loser? And if you knew the real me, you would know that I'm a loser. And so it's really tricky to be able to get past that. So we have to interrupt that cycle of negative self-talk. And one of the ways to do it is to interrupt it with this statement: I am the kind of person who is kind to myself. That's it. And then if you are the kind of person who is kind to yourself, would you be saying that? The things that I would say to myself, Larianne, I would never say to you. And Roy, I would never say to you, because you don't say those kinds of things to your friends. You don't say them to strangers. You don't say them to your enemy. But somehow we think if we say it to ourselves, it's okay. And I have learned that it's not okay. We also have to be kind to ourselves. So there are so many tools and resources. And it's wonderful because as you listen to the different options, you might think, ooh, I like that one. Ooh, that sounds really stupid. And the idea is to create a tool belt of things that you like and that you enjoy. And then say, okay, if I'm struggling today, then I can try this and I can try this. It's wonderful to have an emotional first aid kit so that when you're in a dark place, you can reach out for that Band-Aid, so to speak, and do something to help you. Singing a song is fantastic. It can immediately boost your mood and change things, which is incredible. But also, rather than waiting to fall and need that Band-Aid, it's best to do some continual self-care with a short morning routine. You can do amazing things in 3 minutes, and a short evening routine to help keep things positive so you can sleep better and be more at peace and be ready for another day. So awesome stuff. And again, I have so many free resources listed at the Hope for Healing website, and that is at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. So I invite your listeners to come and check it out.
Beautiful. I was just thinking of a really cute little story the other day because I always try to look at the positive now. It was like I went through some moments. I've always been optimistic, but when you're going down through difficult times, sometimes the optimism gets blurred. But the other day I'm driving and I stopped and one of the bags fell onto the ground. And I went, darn it. And I thought, oh, but you know what? Thank God there weren't eggs in there. He's just fucking really seriously. And then it just flipped my mindset, right? So like the worst I have to do is like, when I get out, I'm gonna have to fill in the bag again, but I didn't break any eggs. Right.
Well done. Way to look for the.
Yes. Where can our listeners get your books?
On Amazon.
Amazon? Okay.
So Amazon, you can find it. And also, if you go to the Hope for Healing website, it can direct you where to find those things. And you can learn more about them and why they exist and what's in them and where to come from.
Great.
Thank you so much for all this information. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot for being our guest.
Take care.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Myono, featuring their multifunctional USB microphone, very light, portable, affordable, and great for podcasters, and available on Amazon.